believe there's...
Yeah.
Good evening, Sarah.
Hey, you're here for the event? Okay, cool. Which book?
Come
Okay,
in,
is it
come
a
in.
browsing situation? Oh, okay.
Come in,
Well,
come
you
join
can-
us.
In that half, probably, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, see, it's a real bookstore. Welcome to Zibby's. Thank you guys so much for coming. We're super excited for this event celebrating LK's great book, For Worse. Thank you so much to Sarah for coming and being a great conversation partner. We'll do like some questions and some chatting from you guys, and then we'll open it up to questions from the group, and then we'll do some signing afterwards. So thank you again for coming. We've got books at the front if you want to buy after the event. And we have a ton of events, so we have event flyers there and by the door. Grab them, come through, come hang out. We have a good time. I'll hand it over.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Here
hit
we
it.
go. Now what happens?
Would you like me to read your bio from the back of the book?
Okay,
All right.
that sounds reasonable.
And are you going to read an excerpt?
Yes,
All right.
I will.
Debut author L.K. Bowen was born in Boston and made her way to Los Angeles to work in the entertainment industry. Like Ellie, her protagonist in For Worse, Bowen has the degenerative eye disease retinitis pigmentosa, which is slowly destroying her vision. To learn more about RP and other degenerative retinal diseases, or to contribute to finding treatments and cures, please visit fightingblindness.org. Lynn and I met each other about 20 years ago. We were both working at Breakdown Services, reading screenplays. And when she first told me the idea for Worse, I was instantly obsessed and I would not let go. I was like a dog with a bone. I had to find out what was going to happen.
Thank
I
God.
begged her for more pages. I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. And I couldn't be more excited for her to have her debut and to finally get this recognition and have other people invited into the world of this book, because I just needed everybody else to have a chance to read it too. So
Sarah was so
Congratulations.
obsessed. Thank you. That she really was the kick in the pants, that I needed to get this thing finished, because it took me years to write it. But she was always there cheerleading in the background. So I'm going to read an excerpt from it, from For Worse, from chapter 6. The protagonists are Ellie, who is married to Jeff. She has retinitis pigmentosa, which is slowly destroying her vision. And, well, let's just see what you make of this. Chapter 6, Don't Let Me Down. Every chapter is the title of a Beatles song. September 15th, 2018. Ellie's standing outside the giant Cineplex, waiting while Jeff gets the car from the parking garage. He'd suggested it so she wouldn't have to navigate the dimly lit garage, and, he'd added, he could move faster without her. The reality hits her that waiting outside in the dark late at night in a strangely unpopulated area is probably not the lesser of the two evils. She liked the movie, what she could see of it. Why are movies so dark all of a sudden? Why can't they tell the same story in a brightly lit, sunshiny field somewhere? Then maybe she could have seen the whole damn thing instead of trying to follow a story whose visuals were always on whatever part of the screen she wasn't looking at, with Jeff translating for her the whole time. She cringes, thinking about the last 2 hours. Did you see that? He'd whisper loudly to her every 5 minutes. Yes. She'd say quietly back to him whether she had any idea if she saw it or not. Okay, what was it? He'd challenged her, irritated by the angry shushes from the people around them. Ellie feels a little depressed. She realizes that in all likelihood, she's probably just seen the last movie she will ever see in a movie theater. The Wife. Ellie had been chilled to the bone by the movie's dysfunctional family dynamic, which reverberated on her psyche like a plucked string. She peers around, barely making out shapes in the darkness outside the lit funnels of the street lamps. She can dimly make out a bunch of people across the street. A family waiting for the bus, or a group of troublemakers eyeing a defenseless blind woman. She startles as a sudden shout and then laughter erupts from the distant group. Amid the shadows, she can make out the red-orange tip of a light cigarette going in and out of her field of vision like a firefly. The street is otherwise empty as far as she can see, which isn't that far. She starts to get anxious. Jeff watches Ellie as she huddles by the wall of the complex on the street. He's been there for about 20 minutes, waiting for his irritation to subside. He's not going to take her to the movies anytime soon, that's for sure. He can't understand why she's so stubborn and why she won't let him help her, simply by explaining what's happening on the movie screen when she clearly cannot see it herself. Is it pride? Defiance? Some stupid need for independence when she so obviously needs assistance? Whatever it is, it infuriates him. So now he's sitting in his darkened car about 30 yards down the street from her, munching on their leftover popcorn as he watches his wife twist in the wind, so to speak. She wants to be independent? Go ahead, Ellie. Let's see how you do.
Oh.
And that's their dynamic.
Mhm. Well, I think this is the perfect question to follow that excerpt. Your ability to evoke a certain response from the reader is terrific. Even when we don't want to be sympathetic to certain characters, we understand them and where they're coming from, their point of view. We don't agree with it, but we get it. Was there ever a version that was strictly Ellie's point of view? How important was it to you to include her daughter, Hannah, and the fucker, Jeff? How did you figure out whose turn it was to have a say? Was it, oh, we haven't heard from this person in a while, let's flip it back to them? Or did you plot it out?
Okay, so for those of you who haven't read the book yet, it is in 2 points of view. There's Ellie's point of view, and there's her husband, Jeff's point of view. And there is their daughter, who's 20 years old. She's at college. And it goes back and forth. And if you read the audiobook, which is fabulous, I think, there's a woman narrator who reads Ellie, and there's a male who reads Jeff. I was scared to death to write the Jeff narration. I didn't want to go into that psyche because it frightened me. And I have since learned that that's a sure indication that that's what you should do when you're writing a book. Is if something scares you, you got to do that. So I also found him very funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think his malignant narcissism makes him so warped in his perception of the world and his take on reality that it was really fun to justify the things that he thought and that he felt and that he did. So I think I started the book thinking, oh, it's just going to be Ellie, no problem. This will be fine. And then I thought I should really throw in Jeff, because one of the things that happens as a writer, and I started as a screenwriter and a playwright, is I hear them talk, and once they start talking, I have to write it down. So he just started talking, as did Hannah. Mm-hmm. And so once they started talking, I knew I had them, but it took a while. And as far as plotting, I'm not a very good outliner. I sort of have to be in it as opposed to flying up above it, outlining. I have to know what they're thinking. And yeah, a lot of it was, geez, we haven't heard from her in a while. So let's throw her in, see what she has to say. Mm-hmm. And then it got, when it was edited, it got rearranged because the chapters are kind of modular. So things were rearranged and timeframes got out of joint. In fact, the scene I just read was originally took place in 2019. And I said the movie was Ad Astra, which hadn't come out yet. There was something about the movie that I originally had that was not right. It hadn't come out yet. So I had to switch it to The Wife. If you've ever seen The Wife, you'll know The Wife is an awesome choice because it is about a dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm. Well, we not only get the three main POVs, like you just mentioned, from Ellie's family, which were Ellie, her daughter Hannah, and her husband Jeff, but we also have these wonderful, very distinct voices in the DWAF chat room. And DWAF stands for Divorced Women Over 50. And I love spending time with the DWAF ladies. They were all such colorful characters. Can you tell us about the real life chat room you discovered that kicked off the idea? And also, how did you figure out which specific types or voices that you wanted to have in conversation with each other?
So along about 2013, I decided to stop coloring my hair. And I was looking for a group of women or a place where I could find other women who had also made the same decision. And I found this chat room called Silver Sisters Cafe Gray. And Everything I learned about chat rooms, I learned on that chat room. They were amazing women, and they're a little fetishistic because they're all going gray, so there are a lot of photographs of people just showing their part line, so you could see how the gray was progressing down their dyed hair. But they were fabulous women, and their voices were so distinct. I could hear them even when I didn't know, who exactly was speaking. And I had a wonderful time in the chat room. And at some point, they had a meetup in New York, and it was the weekend of Hurricane Sandy. And one woman who came in from Wisconsin was stranded in New York City. She couldn't get home, and she didn't have enough money left for a hotel room. And on the chat, they started to GoFundMe, which is in the book as well. And they managed to communicate with her, and they found her a place to stay, and they extended her hotel stay. I mean, it was extraordinary what they did kinetically, on this chat room. And I thought, what an amazing way to tell a story. And I don't know that chat rooms exist anymore. I think they might be more prevalent on the dark web, which I have not gone to, by the way. I was only going to go so far, and then I had to stop. But I think if I were to write it right now, I would probably put them in a WhatsApp group, something like that. But there were some lively goings on in that chat room, including people who talked about heartache. I mean, there was a woman who left for a while, and she came back, and she said, I had to leave. My husband was beating me up, and I had to go, and now I'm with my mama, and she's in for worse. So it was an incredibly in fact, I think I was on that chat room when I said to you, I have an idea on a chat room. And you said, oh, that's great.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in our office when we worked together. My desk was behind yours, and your son asked if I ever threw spitballs at you.
Right.
And I was like, that hadn't occurred to me, but
why not?
I know.
Right. Actually, what you said, I remember that moment because I thought, and then you said, it's a corporate environment, and they frown on spitballs here. So no, there were no spitballs.
No spitballs. Oh, each chapter uses a different Beatles song for its title, as you mentioned. I love this. Whose idea was it? And this is kind of down in the weeds, but did you have to get the rights to anything?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I'm sorry. Were you done?
No, I had one other thing, which was it fun to decide which song to use where? Because you have a lot of choices. And how did you make sure that it kind of matched with the chapter's contents?
Yeah. So I love this because this was like, the best way to procrastinate before starting your chapter was I had to find the perfect Beatles song. And I went to the Beatles Wikipedia page, and they had all the songs in order. And some of them weren't always written by the Beatles. So I made sure to choose the ones that were written by the Beatles. And I didn't care if the chapter was apropos in terms of the title or some lyric deep into the song. I just couldn't get that far into it. But when the book was just about ready to go into publication, and I did the final pass through, I was looking at it, I said, I emailed the editor, and I said, hey, where's the table of contents? And he said, well, we don't usually have a table of contents. I said, no, sorry. I worked really hard on those Beatles songs. I want a table of contents, right? I want that front and center. So they very nicely put in a table of contents. The lyrics, when I first wrote this, not thinking it would ever get published or not thinking anything except I have this story I have to tell. So I wrote it. I had Jeff and Ellie met through their love of the Beatles. And I had entire scenes where they spoke to each other in Beatles lyrics. Oh, the good old days. So I had one pass, and I sent it to my publisher, Dan, and he said, I assume you have the rights to all these lyrics. And I said, I thought you'd get the rights. You're the publisher. And then I found out it's like $250,000 to get the rights to a single Beatles song. So I said, what do? I don't want to rewrite those chapters. And he said, here's what you do. I've done this many times. You can have up to 7 words before they start charging you. So I went through all those I think there were 3 chapters where they had like entire songs where they'd sing together, and I had to chop them all down until they were just 7 words. And then the copy editor said, no, you could have used 12 words. And I was like, well, it's like, oh, come on. But I'm actually pretty happy the way it is now because it's succinct. I think you get the drift, and you didn't need, 5 lines of she said by the Beatles. But I will say what disappointed me was that I asked, can the readers sing for the audiobook? He said, no,
Yeah.
they can't sing. And I wanted to email them and say, could you at least get kind of a rhythm, like, so that you won't see me is you won't see me instead of you won't see me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
So it goes.
Yeah, that's
it's
a
okay.
tricky one.
It was a very tricky one.
I've heard you can also kind of cheat it where, like, okay, let's say in one of my books, the dad is trying to comfort his daughter and he sings Blackbird by the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
But of course I couldn't quote it directly, but I could say he's singing the song about the blackbird learning how to fly. Like so you kind of,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
went
say
there,
what
but you
he's
didn't go there.
doing and you can even like kind of quote it, but you just don't put it in quotes. Yeah.
That's what I did.
It's tricky.
Yeah. He sang the beautiful, simple ballad.
Yes.
And I love her or whatever it was. Yeah. It was a little heartbreaking, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
I'll never do that again.
You and Ellie share a diagnosis of retinitis pigmentosa, which gives the story a distinct, memorable viewpoint. Was it cathartic to draw on your experiences when crafting Ellie's character, which also informs so much about her dilemma in leaving Jeff?
Was it cathartic? No, it was, I was able to express myself. I was able to express the things I really thought that I couldn't ever tell my family or my friends. I was able to express anger, loss, my anger at how marginalized one feels with a disability, how much of a burden one feels with a disability. There's a chapter where a friend of hers drops her off at CVS and waits for her while she just sort of does whatever her shopping is. And there's a paragraph where she says when she stopped driving, her husband and her daughter said, we'll take you anywhere you want to go. This is not true. Your family and friends can't take you everywhere you want to go because sometimes you just want to go to goddamn Bed Bath & Beyond, rest in peace, and, and look at the dish towels and then go and get yourself a cup of coffee and then just maybe go walk in the park for a minute. And you can't do that if you can't drive. If you are a disabled person, you have to rely on other people. And that reliance really sucks. And I really hate that. As much as I have an extraordinary group of people, really extraordinary family and friends around me, who will take me anywhere, it's not the same. And to be able to express that feeling of just being pissed off about it, and I don't feel whiny about this. This is a terrible disease I have. And most people who have it, I found out when I was 21, most people, when you find out you have RP at 21, you're blind at 40. So I'm 68 and I have considerable vision. And I think that is the greatest gift that anyone ever gave me, that and the fact that my kids don't seem to have it. So I'm grateful for the vision I have, and you should be too. And but I'm also grateful that I had a conduit through this book to be able to speak out, and also perhaps, I can't assume, but perhaps I speak for people who have other disabilities as well, the sense of having to rely on other people, which really can take it out of you,
Yeah. So no spoilers, but when a certain twist in the book was revealed, I had that wonderful moment as a reader where I said, I have to go back now and reread and like relive certain moments to see how you threaded the needle on this. So when you were writing like the first draft, how did you lay out the structure for that? Like, well, when I wrote my mystery, I was always paranoid that my twists were going to be way too obvious. So then I would sometimes swing in the opposite direction and make them impossible for anyone to figure out. So did you have that Agatha Christie term of fair play going through your mind where readers could figure it out if they're really paying attention, but it wouldn't be too easy? Or did you want to sort of sucker punch the audience? So what was kind of your goal with the twists? that occur.
When I first started it, I thought, oh, I want to have little hints, hints here and hints there. And my editor, Celia, said, don't do that. She said, if the character's going to be sucker punched, let the reader be sucker punched as well. And I thought that actually makes a lot of sense. And that, since I'm writing another thriller, and I just wrote this really elaborate prologue for it, and I'm about 70 pages in, and I thought, that prologue gives too much away. They'll be able to figure it out. So the prologue is going elsewhere, So yeah, and it was, I think as a writer, I wanted, I'm fond of my readers. So I wanted to kind of, lead them by the hand and make sure that they got to where I needed them to go. But they got there. You'll get there. I mean, but I think if you follow Ellie's journey, so you're just as gobsmacked as she is, it's more of an event in the book.
And thrillers and mysteries, there's differences in the tropes and the genre expectations and stuff like that. So I think that makes perfect sense that you want the reader to go on the same journey as the protagonist.
Yeah.
All right. So you are forcing me to ask this. This would not have been my original question, just so you all know, but I'm really glad that I am asking it and that you wanted me to. How does it feel to debut at 68?
Awesome. So I
think it's inspiring and I think it's wonderful. And I think that we should be more of a culture of telling people that it's never too late and that you should do what you want to do, regardless of age, regardless of where you are in your path or your career or any of those things, because when you run out of time, you run out of time.
Well, exactly. And who's to know? And who's to say? My son was supposed to be here today and he couldn't make it because he got sick, and I was hoping he was going to bring his roommates. And I wanted to have some young people here to not that we're all not young. I wanted to have some young people here just so I could say, when you're young, they tell you follow your bliss and don't give up on your dream. And meanwhile, you got to earn a living. You got to pay your rent. Maybe even, please God, you have a mortgage. I don't know, not if you live in LA, but but the point of that is, if you hang on to your dream, maybe you'll find some space later on. It's not over till it's over. And the other thing that sort of bothered me a little bit about this is when I had early meetings over Zoom with my publisher and publicist and an agent and all those people, no one mentioned my age. And I probably legally they couldn't, but I think it is an accomplishment to do a first at 68.
Yeah.
I really am very proud of the fact that that I didn't say, oh, I'm just going to read, I'm not going to write. I'm just going to do this and not that. And now I have a whole, hopefully, second career. I'm writing another book, and it's really made a difference. It really makes a difference in how I view this next chapter, no pun intended, of my life.
Yeah.
So I think it should be celebrated and not put on the back burner.
No, I do too. And honestly, I'd like to read more books by older authors because the depth and breadth of experience is there. And the way that the press covers, a debut novelist, so she's only 22, or,
right?
It's like, that's great. And they might still have plenty of interesting things to say, but they haven't lived that long. And I just feel there's sometimes a lack of nuance, or there's a lack of just having gone through more elements that you can draw on when you're crafting characters or plot lines and things like that. I feel like I'm sometimes in better hands with an older author, honestly, but yeah.
And sometimes you never know.
That's right.
You never know. So,
yeah,
but thank you for asking that question.
Absolutely. I don't know what we're doing in terms of on time. I have like 6 other questions, but these fine folks might also like to chime in with questions.
You can definitely ask them.
Okay.
Oh, you want to keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. Second wind. The chapters span decades, which I think is actually quite a feat in writing. And we really get to know the trio of the family, from Jeff and Ellie, the husband and wife's first meeting and their courtship, to their first fight, to real life events like 9/11. And you show us Hannah as a kid, as well as a college student. And each scene has a purpose. I found that each chapter showed kind of a pivot point in their relationships to each other. How did you decide which scenes from a marriage or scenes from a life to include to paint such a vivid picture? In other words, how did you decide what to show and what to hold back that maybe you as the author were aware of, but didn't necessarily fit in the story, but could still inform, what they do and how they behave?
When I originally wrote the novel in its very, very first form, the only thriller part was the last 30 or 40 pages when they really start going after each other. It was really about the dissolution of a marriage over the course of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, and then Victoria, our agent, said, no, you got to take some of the thriller part at the end and move it into the beginning. So I wrote 3 or 4 new scenes that were definitely like the one I just read, that were definitely raised the stakes and made it clear what they were going through. And also Victoria said, you got to put it more in the present. So a lot of the stories that were told about the marriage are now told in the context of the present situation. As a writer, learning this, how to write a novel, it was interesting to me to have her say, stay in the present. That keeps it much more vivid and moving. And Victoria also said to me, you have to have every chapter propel into the next chapter, which was a great thing to learn. So so I was very conscious in that next draft that I had 3 more scenes of Jeff kind of going after her in a way that was creepy and not really definable, as opposed to just the linear progression of their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I learned in this book, I'm taking to the other book. I mean, it was really, I had some fantastic teachers from my agent to the developmental editor, Celia Johnson, to the copy editor, David Baker.
Mm-hmm.
These people know their shit. I mean, it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really amazing.
Good. Well, speaking of the editing process, I did notice that some of my very favorite lines from the very initial draft that really stuck with me, I noticed they were still there in this published version, which made me so happy. And I think it speaks very highly to your writing instincts and your ability to create these characters. But as another writer, I always wonder, given that so many of these like golden nuggets remain, how many drafts did you write to get from the first draft to the initial published work? And you touched on this a little bit, but were there ways in which the editor challenged or inspired you that you didn't expect?
Oh, yeah. She was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the first thing she said was use the chat room to push the story forward, so that if Ellie is having any kind of a thing that she might have been thinking about in another time or another space, have her air it on the chat room. And that way you can use the chat room more strategically. Mm-hmm. I thought that was brilliant. We did go head to head a couple of times on things that are my particular rhythm, like there's a line, Hannah couldn't imagine getting an apartment on her own without hearing her father's voice in her ears. Mm. She has friends who just went and got apartments with friends. They just went and got apartments with friends. She marvels at that. So Celia said, you don't need the second. She just went and got they just went and got apartments with friends. I said, please.
You do though.
We did. That's the
For
rhythm.
The rhythm. Yeah.
That's the rhythm. And the other thing was Jeff, when Jeff first meets Ellie in Starbucks, and he wants to tell her she's wrong, and then he says, "Don't tell her she's wrong," and the line was something like, "He don't say that. He tells himself." And my line was, "Himself didn't listen to himself," and I don't think that's in there. I don't think it is either. He didn't listen to himself. Mm-hmm. And I just said, "Okay, Celia, I'll give it to you. I'll give you this one," right? But most of the time, she was very clear. She said, "You are the writer. You have the final say. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to impede on your what you hear or your vision."
Yeah.
So and she was actually very good about that most of the time.
Good.
Did I answer the question?
Well, I was looking for a number of drafts between
6.
The first one.
6.
Okay. See, I find that
6.
really inspiring to know. I love that, like the nitty-gritty details,
Yeah, but
what
it's
it
like
takes and...
it's 6, but sometimes it was like revised third draft, second revised third draft, third revised third draft, and then I was like, okay, fourth draft.
Yeah, I'm sure the Word doc titles got longer and longer, or the dash, and then the date.
Oh my God, it's like takes up this much room on my computer.
But each one is just like you're getting your hands in and you're just molding it just that little bit closer to the final version.
It's similar to writing a screenplay, where in each version you deal with a certain problem, right? So you'll deal with pacing, or you'll deal with moving the thriller stuff up, or you'll deal with the chat rooms. You know, so each draft has a point,
or the bigger picture, and then the scene level, and then the
Exactly.
line level, and then the grammar
Right.
level.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it does have excellent pacing, and so many like gut punch chapter endings that just propel you to the next chapter. As someone who read scripts for a living, were there any movie scripts or TV shows that stood out for you or helped you learn the importance of pacing and crisp dialogue, or even like what not to do?
You know, it took 6 years at least to write this book. So I read a lot of scripts because Sarah and Christiane are worked with me at Breakdown until they decamped and left me. And yeah, you do reading scripts, but you do get a sense of pacing. Like, let's move this thing along. And I do think I would be writing and I would say, something's got to happen here. Except for that middle section.
It's so hard.
Right. The middle section, it was like, I would call you and say, the middle. And you'd go, I know. So, yes, but yes, I do think writing screenplays, which have to get their work done between, 100 and 120 pages.
Yeah.
So actually, writing a novel at 300 pages, like, slipping into warm bathwater, because you could really kind of just take your time and get to where you want to go. But yeah, I did reading all those scripts, as much as I lose them the minute I finish reading them. Yes, I did get a sense of, no, it's slow. There's a dip, move, let's go.
Yeah. Enter the scene late, get out early kind of thing.
Exactly.
Which reminds me of some writing advice that you gave me several years ago about starting a story. And I hadn't thought about it in these terms before. I bet you guys also know this edict with your screenplays. You need to introduce your characters in the midst of a crisis and then watch how they scramble to get out of it. And hopefully that initial scene introduces the character, hooks the reader, also encapsulates their eventual story arc, and does all these things in miniature. And did that cross your mind specifically as you wrote about doing that particular thing? Or do you think that's so ingrained in you at this point from all the reading and writing that you've done that it was an unconscious choice?
I think it was unconscious. But I do know that as a reader, I like to open a book and not wait around.
Yeah.
I like to know. It doesn't have to be a dead body right away.
Right.
I can wait for the body. I'm cool with that. But I do need to know what we are up against, reader and protagonist. So well, I do remember that advice, and I can't remember where I got it. I might have read it somewhere. But I do think it's the same with writing a screenplay or a play. You do have to, would you say, come in late, leave early?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yep. Keep it moving along.
Yeah.
Let's open it up. Do you have a question, sir?
I'm listening to you, trying to listen. It's kind of hard for me to hear. Why did you want to tell the story? Why did you get motivated to tell this unraveling story?
I was interested in using the chat room as a platform, even though I knew it would have to be a lot of narrative. I was interested in using a woman with a degenerative eye disease. And, I was reading a lot of marriage gone bad thrillers. And so I thought, well, let's put all that stuff together and see what happens. I actually originally was thinking of the husband as being a straight out sociopath. And then I started doing some research into narcissists. And there's a really great website, narcissisticpersonality.org. And I got some fantastic tidbits of how they behave. Like it is a fact that in a large portion of malignant narcissists, they treat people like waiters, gardeners, people that are maybe doing a service for them, badly.
Yeah.
And I thought,
It's like they don't exist as people to them or something.
it's more the aggrandizement.
Mm.
It is the aggrandizement of I am up here and you are down there. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to put up against this woman who has a disability, who has to rely on this person.
Why did you want to tell the story? Why did you?
I'm not
want to
answering your
start
question.
Going and write for your own personal? Was it recreation for you, or
It was recreation. Yeah.
And I was breathing down her neck going, where's the next pages? Where's the next pages?
Well, I had Sarah, who had published like 5 or 6 books at that point. And I thought, can I do this? Can I really get to page 300? And then I fell in love with my character, who was me. So how hard was that? But I also, I had to tell her story. I had to tell her story of how do you get out of a bad marriage with a person who belittles you and sabotages you and makes you fearful. And then it became very real to me. The other thing I wanted to say about sociopaths versus narcissists, sociopaths, in a broad sense, can't love. Narcissists can. It's not to say it's healthy, a healthy love. It's more of an attachment. But that is the difference. And I once I started looking into narcissists and I decided to make Jeff one, I thought, this is really interesting because this is a man who does love his family, but he doesn't know how to do it productively or even safely. So once I put some elements together, I found that it was a story that I was compelled to tell. So
and
did that
Jeff's
answer your
very
question?
research narcissism?
You bet.
Mhm.
Yeah, you bet.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Jeff has a lot of nuance. He's not just a villain. He's very complicated. And when you read his chapters, you're like, okay, he's driving me crazy, but I understand his thought process. It's not the way I would think about things,
Right.
but it's fully formed. And I think he did an incredible job with that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think he's consistent throughout.
Yeah.
I have a question. You came from the world of playwriting and screenwriting. When you
Sort
first
of.
started drafting, did you find yourself writing a lot of dialogue
You bet.
and not a lot of things between?
Yes, absolutely. And that's hence the chat room, right? It's all
Well, that's
dialogue.
perfect,
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
So whenever I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
narration, let's get people talking.
Mhm.
I was able to go into the chat room and everybody was just gabbing away. And I love them. Someone called them a Greek chorus. And
Yeah, that's true.
that's-
That's a good insight.
Yeah.
I would get so excited whenever I would see the chat room scenes come up. I'd be like, ooh, all right, who's there today? And what are they going to talk about? And how are they going to help each other or make each other laugh and stuff? It's a real community.
My concept for the screenplay, not that there is one yet, is that we could get like Whoopi Goldberg and Meryl Streep and like all these really great actresses
Yes.
to like do the voices in the chat room.
That'd be fabulous.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But I also,
Mm.
ironically, when we sent the book out, most of the people who rejected it did not like the chat rooms. They said that it took away from the narration, and that they thought that there was too much humor. And someone said they didn't think 9/11 should ever be used as a plot point. Therefore, she rejected it. I know.
It only takes one person saying yes. That's all you need is one person saying yes, who clearly had better taste.
I couldn't be happier
Mhm.
than with Blackstone. They
Yeah.
were really pretty
They did a
amazing.
really good job for you.
So, are there any other questions?
I have a quick question. So, what's your writing process like?
Hi.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi. You guys, you're
David
backlit.
Richard.
You're backlit. I didn't see it. It was you guys. Hi.
Hey, Lynn.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
So,
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So, what's your writing process like? Do you like write 4 hours a day, or like a number of pages, or what do you do?
Mostly I clean, and I try and get, because I work full time and because I do have like eye strain, I tend to only write on weekends. So I do try and set aside about 4 hours on both those days. And really that's it. And then the rest of the time, I'm always running to a notebook to jot something down, but yeah, I can't do more than 4 hours at a time. And a lot of that's walking around, just.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when there is a screenplay, you just mentioned the wonderful actresses that you could see playing the voice in the chat room. But the actress who would play
Ellie. Yeah.
Who?
Oh yeah,
would you
fantasy
have?
cast it.
So
fantasy cast it.
Heather, who used to work at Breakdown, also she had a great casting suggestion, which was Kevin Bacon and his wife,
Kira Sedgwick,
Kira
yeah.
Sedgwick.
Oh, that would be
Oh my
so
gosh.
good. That would
That's
be
amazing.
Wouldn't that be
perfect.
perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he
Heather,
could be a
if you're
good
watching.
menacing, and then she would be so like
It'd be perfect.
personable, and
Right?
yeah, I love it.
And they're married, so they
I
already have their shit
know.
together,
That would be good.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
That would be really good.
But if Jennifer Aniston or Reese Witherspoon,
You wouldn't say no.
I don't know if it will ever come to that, but you never know.
What's your relationship with the Beatles? Why was that so important to bring that into as a structure in your story?
I just love the Beatles. They were the soundtrack to my growing up. And I just thought, I thought that when I was imagining Ellie and Jeff when they were young, when they first got together, that would be a thing that they could connect with.
Did you listen to the Beatles constantly while you wrote, or was
Never.
that not? Yeah.
Nope. Can't have music when I'm writing. It's too distracting.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
How many publishers did you have to submit to?
21.
Wow.
And the 21th bought it.
Awesome. Sounds like a legal number.
It was funny. It was funny because usually what happens is an editor will read it from the agent, right, and then buy it or pitch it to their acquisitions department, and then the acquisitions department will say, "Well, that sounds good. Go ahead with it." So in this case, Dan didn't have to pitch it, but 8 members of the acquisition board had to read it and give the go-ahead. And so when Victoria sent that to me, I was like, "Oh well, that's that's never going to happen." But I was so shocked when all 8 of them. Can you imagine 8 people?
No, 8 people don't even agree on what to eat.
Right?
Like,
Right.
yeah.
You can't get lunch with 8 people.
Yeah.
So I was pretty flabbergasted by that. So that was great. And Blackstone is really a wonderful publisher. The publicity department is amazing, and they organized this, which was pretty fabulous. So it's just been a
And the
great
cover
experience.
is really great because if you notice, so the name of the chat room is Divorced Women Over 50, and they even put its little nickname Dwarf on the cover. So it's very specific just to this book. Like they didn't just take generic stuff and slap it together. Like they really put thought into this. And you'll notice that the type is a little fuzzy as viewed from somebody whose sight is not as sharp. And I just love it.
I do too.
It's
I
so
think it's
cool.
a great cover.
Did you have input?
They designed it and then they sent it to me, and it was a little bit different. The words, the word for worse was melting into the computer, and it looked like a horror movie. So I said, "Don't do that." And then
and they listened, which is also very rare. Usually they're like, we've already decided. It's
no, they did it. And then there was something. It said one of the things was, "You have to kill him." And I'm like, it's a little right on the money.
Oh, that's amazing.
Maybe something
you have
else.
to kill him. Oh,
But they
man.
did have "Nobody Will Know" at the bottom, which I think is great for a thriller.
Yeah, for sure.
I love the color, and I love the colors of the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear, who did you say the publisher was?
Blackstone.
Oh, Blackstone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know
I
Blackstone?
do.
Hey,
I'm a Blackstone author.
Wait, who are you? Hi.
publishing buddies.
My name is Zorro, like the sword fighter.
Awesome.
I have a memoir coming out with them next week.
Oh,
cool.
congratulations.
Working
That's
on it for
fabulous.
15 years. And so when you said Blackstone, I'm like, those are my people.
That's great.
Are you having a good experience with them?
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
They're amazing.
They
So
are.
when I thought you said Blackstone, it could be not Blackstone, is it? And I saw the logo and I wanted to make sure.
What are the odds? That's so amazing.
Unbelievable. I just was walking by.
Oh, we'll have to tell them.
Wonderful.
You'll have to tell Dan.
Yeah, Dan and Marilyn Kretzer.
Well, okay, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
You should converse.
Wow.
I also like how it makes you feel like it's late at night because they have the screen is like
Yes,
yellow
yeah.
and it's bright, and you can picture someone at like 2 a.m. just
Yeah.
typing and chatting and plotting. Yeah. Mhm.
Can you give us any insight about the next book you're working on?
Oh, well, so in this book, Ellie, when she's just had it with her husband, she imagines she has a phantom husband who's like the nicest guy in the entire world. And so for my next book, I thought, well, what if a woman really had a phantom husband
Mhm.
and kind of took it to the nth degree, like made a Facebook account for him and an Instagram account, got him a passport, a driver's license, and a library card. And then what if someone dies and she gets accused of murdering a person who doesn't exist?
Mhm.
So that's
I like that.
That's a
the
great
book.
premise.
Yeah,
Mhm. How far along are you right now? in
not
it?
far enough. But in the book, someone is hypnotizing someone else. The book is actually called "When You Wake Up, You Will Remember Everything." And I wanted to find out how you could use hypnotism malevolently, right? And so I was thinking, well, there must be a book, there must be an article. No, there's a million videos.
Oh no! Don't open them.
Right? Right? And there's like, watch this video to find out how you can use hypnotism malevolently. So I made it up.
You might need to get a VPN. And
I don't think so. Because I could see myself, watching this video and then just going away.
spinning. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you might have to retreat on the research for that one.
I'm just going to make it up.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really, really good.
You want to take another? You mentioned you mentioned Marx and the character in there. I think you referred to that he was going downhill because he was into Marx, Karl Marx. Did you mention that?
Nope.
I thought I
No,
heard that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Mm.
Well, you should know. It's your book.
No, I'm thinking, did I?
I thought
I
I
don't
heard.
think so.
Nope.
Hypnotism, you can try self-hypnotism.
No. I'm not going to do that either. Hypnotism scares me to death. Yes.
Yes, I just had a quick question.
Hi, Marina.
Hi.
Mhm.
I don't think you can answer this specifically without revealing too much of your book. But I just wondered if you had any plan are any of these characters that we'll see in future? Okay, all
No,
right,
I'm done with this story.
okay.
Yeah.
It's fully contained, I
Oh,
think.
we're not.
Maybe a
I can't
bonus,
say no more.
a bonus chapter.
Okay, that's interesting. A little fan fiction.
Yeah. That would be good.
Are there any more? I can't see.
Any other questions, or should we start the signing line?
Thank you.
Sign.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you all for
Yay.
coming.
Thank you, Lynn. For your candid answers.
Amazing.
Woohoo. I'm going to keep eating these cheese and crackers.
Thank you, Sarah. That was perfect.
Yay.
That could not have been more
It was
perfect.
so much more. It was so much fun. And your